When you think about the best toy franchises in existence, the Transformers has to be at or near the top of that list. While the Generation 1 toy line produced one iconic character after another in US markets, it's also worth considering some characters who may have made a name for themselves overseas, particularly in Japan, where the Transformers has some very deep roots. Throughout the 2020s, we've seen a larger emergence of characters originally known to be Japanese exclusives in the late 1980s, and in modern times, they'd make their way into relevance within the consciousness of the Western world. At the forefront of all this is the use of Hasbro's Haslab crowdfunding platform, where we've seen higher-end versions of these characters be brought to life and delivered to the doorsteps of toy collectors. Namely, there's the releases of Victory Saber and later Deathsaurus from the Transformers 1989 Transformers Victory cartoon series. But it seems that's not all we'd see from Haslab with that particular season of the Transformers. In fact, the originally hard-to-find LioKaiser Combiner has emerged as yet another item that has gotten offered to fans in modern toy collecting. But before we get there, a few things can be said about the 1989 toy offering where it all started. So we may as well use the time right now to discuss one of the more rare and desirable Transformers in Japanese Generation 1 lore. Let's begin. Most people will be familiar with the Transformers' US cartoon releases from 1984 through to 1987. Namely, you have the first 3 seasons of the Transformers plus their animated movie, along with the shortened 3-episode 4th season titled Transformers: The Rebirth. In Japan, the Transformers cartoon would replace that abbreviated 4th season with their own full-length season titled Transformers: The Headmasters. A 5th season called Transformers Super God Masterforce would follow, and the 6th full-length season would be titled Transformers Victory, which is related to the topic we're discussing today. While combiner teams within the Transformers would come out way before 1989, the 1989 subset based on the Victory cartoon itself would include Landcross on the Autobot side, as well as Road Caesar. Victory Saber, with his 2 components of Star Saber and Victory Leo, can also be considered as a combiner of sorts. For the Decepticons, you have Dino King, who himself is a recolor of Monstructor from this same year, although Monstructor was not part of the cartoon. And of course, we have LioKaiser. If some of these names are not familiar to you, it's to be expected since the later seasons in Japan deviate quite heavily from the earlier, more well-known seasons. So within Transformers Victory, the LioKaiser Combiner consisted of 6 individual robots, collectively given the strange name of Breastforce, and that's due to the breast animals that can be attached to their chests, hence the name. Now, before we go too far, note that the leader of the Decepticons in this season, namely the Decepticon Emperor of Destruction known as Deathsaurus, was also considered as a Breastforce Transformer due to his companion robots named Eagle Breast and Tiger Breast being attachable into his chest. That said, he doesn't combine with the rest of the Breastforce members. So the 6 individual members we're talking about right now include Drillhorn, who turns into a drill tank and forms the left leg of LioKaiser. Killbison, who turns into the right leg and whose alternate mode is that of a tank. Hellbat transforms into the left arm and has a fighter jet mode. Gaihawk is another fighter jet who becomes the combiner's right arm. You have Jallguar, who forms the lower torso in the combiner mode and has a racing buggy style car mode. And finally, Leozack, the head and upper torso of LioKaiser, who also has a jet mode himself. Note that Leozack very much serves as a chief lieutenant to Deathsaurus in the cartoon, and is the leader of the LioKaiser-based Breastforce members themselves. That said, much like Starscream did in the earlier seasons to Megatron, Leozack himself very much desires power and would plot to usurp Deathsaurus if given the chance. The cartoon's initial lineup consists of just Leozack, Drillhorn, Jallguar, and Killbison within this combiner subgrouping, and they'd be joined by Hellbat and Gaihawk later on in the season. And while Leozack is one of the main characters in the cartoon, one interesting story arc involves Hellbat, with Hellbat being untrustworthy to other team members and often finding himself unable to get along with them. Leozack sought to replace Hellbat with another member, namely Deathcobra. That said, Hellbat met up with Deathcobra on his own before Deathcobra was able to join up with the rest of the team, and after some angry words exchanged, they ended up in a bit of a firefight, where Hellbat was reluctant to get into it with the new member, but he accidentally landed a fatal shot and killed Deathcobra. He ended up later on pinning the blame on the Autobots for Deathcobra's demise. By the end of the cartoon season, LioKaiser and thus the Breastforce team found themselves in a battle with Victory Leo, and during this, Victory Leo managed to defeat and seemingly kill LioKaiser, sending his body hurtling into space, thus concluding LioKaiser's story arc in this series. Circling back to the toy line, it's worth pointing out that a vintage LioKaiser is not an easy item to obtain, with prices being quite high, as can be the case with a lot of overseas Transformers. One thing to note is that the red missiles that come with Jallguar are quite difficult to find and are often missing. The chest animals themselves are also often found missing when hunting for complete LioKaisers on the market. Additionally, due to the type of plastic that he's made from, Killbison could be prone to something known as gold plastic syndrome or GPS, which results in this type of plastic easily fracturing or shattering upon even the most minimal stress conditions. That said, while it was common amongst gold plastic Transformers, Killbison is one of the lesser known examples to suffer GPS and can still often be found intact. Of note, 4 of the 6 members would be re-released with different colors in 1992 into European markets, and this set was known as Rescue Force. These could in theory combine to form an incomplete looking LioKaiser-like combiner, even if that didn't seem to be the intent with these releases. There would be other ties to LioKaiser within various forms of fiction, such as comic or manga appearances of Leozack's sister named Leozack, as well as LioKaiser's brief appearance in IDW Comics, just to name a few. Also, there'd be a BotCon 2009 exclusive Leozack figure and a Combiner Wars version of LioKaiser, though this one replaced Sorceress, renamed as Sorceress, as the torso in the place of Leozack and Jallguar. And this is just to name a few of several other toy appearances. You'll notice that I used the character names I was already familiar with, as that's how many fans have known them historically. But you'll also see that the 2025 Haslab funding campaign renames some members of this team. But the biggest change is probably the use of the name Chest Force to replace Breastforce, which is naturally somewhat more palatable to buyers. Chest Force has been used in the past as an alternate name to Breastforce, but as a Haslab offering, this helps to officialize it a little bit more. And as interesting as it is to see the 6 members of this combiner team in a modernized aesthetic, a key aspect of Haslab projects is always the stretch goals. For this one, we've got a Tier 1 unlock of Deathcobra, followed by a second tier that includes an electromagnetic set of nunchucks that can be wielded, and a third tier of several display bases. But it is this edition of Deathcobra that will draw the attention from die-hard fans of 1980s Transformers, particularly those who follow the Japanese series. And that's because he never got an appearance along with the rest of the Breastforce group in 1989, nor has he gotten any officially licensed Hasbro or Takara figure at all until this one. Some have had the idea to use the Transformers subscription service figure of Serpentor from 2015 as a stand-in, but that's really all it is, just a stand-in while using a crossover G.I. Joe Transformers figure. That said, Deathcobra has been made before in the third-party unlicensed Transformers world, such as with this Iron Factory version of him. And while not everyone's gonna feel that the LioKaiser Combiner deserves to be done as a Haslab dream project, the long-awaited addition of an official Deathcobra with his chest animal and helicopter alternate mode does provide something of an X-factor for those who have wanted him in their collection for decades. Now, I do want to add that if you happen to be enjoying this video, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button, press that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future Toy Connections video content. Yes, it's a small effort for you, but it'll go a long way towards helping me with growing this channel. I tried to pack as much information in here as possible, and the focus was on the Combiner bots as well as their merged form. But to round out the discussion, you can pause the screen and look at the names of the various breast animal or chest animal partners if you are curious. I didn't go through their names earlier as there were already enough names and enough information to discuss earlier on without potentially cluttering these in as well, but now would be a good time to show them. These companion animal bots are interesting in their own way, given that they have an animal transformation form, a gun mode, as well as the chest mode. In the end, the goal here was to show the backstory of one of the more dominant combiners in the Transformers Victory series, especially as this combiner team doesn't get the coverage in some markets that it deserves. Hopefully, all the backstory in this video can serve as something of a reference guide that both existing and future fans of LioKaiser can appreciate, and perhaps it's something that people can come back to if they ever need a revisitation into this particular topic. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful and informative, what I'm going to do is I'll put another Transformers history video that you can click on right over here, or to have a look at my personal toy collection, you can have a look at this video right over here. And with that, let's transform and roll out into the next video. See you next time.